Good morning and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions today, please ask them in the comments box or use the hashtag QBATE on Twitter. If you haven't already done so and you need any extra advice, please join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook, where accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live sessions today, we will be running a poll, so please do engage with that and I'll reveal the results at the end. I'm delighted to be here again on one of these Ask the Expert shows. My name, for those of you who haven't seen me before, is Judith Dugdale. I am a chartered accountant and I'm based up in the northwest of England. I work for a large independent firm of chartered accountants and business advisors called MHA Moore and Smalley, and we deliver all manner of services that you would expect any accountants and business advisors to do so across multiple sectors and to all different sizes of clients. I myself head up our digital solutions team, and what that means is that myself and my colleagues within the team perform services for those small businesses that use cloud accounting software. The services we provide include annual accounts, VAT returns, we do corporate tax, personal tax, and we do outsource bookkeeping for clients through QuickBooks Online. We also do a lot of growth support with our clients. We have an awful lot of startups and small new businesses, so we make use of technology that links in with QuickBooks Online to provide insights into their business and enable us to work with them to grow their business. In addition to that, we obviously look at the tax side of things and try and make sure that we can minimise corporate and individual taxes as much as possible. We also have a slightly different side to the team, which is more about setting up systems. So in terms of our own clients from the wider firm and new clients to the business, we look at their systems that they use now and recommend a cloud solution which would work better for them. We do the setup, the training and the ongoing support on those systems. And in addition to this, one of our software managers also provides training on behalf of Intuit to other accountants across the country. At the moment, as a firm, we've obviously had a very difficult sort of 9 months dealing with all the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on our clients. We spent a lot of time advising people on plans when they're shut, plans for reopening, managing their cash flow while they are open, dealing with applying for various different grants. So it has been a very, very busy period for us. And one of the things that has come out of that is possibly less focus on Brexit. So before I start answering any of your questions today, I just wanted to briefly touch on Brexit. Before I do that though, I just wanted to remind everybody that the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, the latest grant, is available for application today. So as of today, you can apply for the grant that covers November, December and January. I'm afraid it's the same eligibility criteria as it's been in the past. So if you weren't eligible for the first or the second grant, then you won't be eligible for this one. One little caveat I have got is that the eligibility this time is slightly harder, or at least when you go on the government website to review your grant application, you're asked a lot more questions than before, it appears. And we've had a bit of information through from gov.uk explaining what a business must do to comply with the adversely affected. So any of you that have made a grant claim under the SEISS scheme in the past, you will know that there's a question that asks you whether you've been adversely affected. And there's not really been much around that in terms of what it actually means. Well, on gov.uk website now, if you search around the SEISS grant, you will find that there are some examples on there now of what classes as adversely affected and what doesn't. All in all, what it means is if your profitability, so not necessarily your income, but your profitability of your self-employed business If that is down and going to be down, or you expect it to be down on the previous year, then you're eligible to make a claim. However, if your income is going to be down, but actually your costs are also down, and therefore the profit that you're going to end up with is similar, then you're not classed as adversely affected and shouldn't therefore make the grant claim. So I just wanted to update people about that change in case they've not been made aware of it before. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was Brexit. So a year ago, I think Brexit was on everybody's mind. It was talked about all the time. And then COVID-19 hit. And even though we came out of the agreement with the EU at the end of January this year, we had a transition period where nothing changed. Everything's been the same. Now, the end of that transition period is coming to an end soon. As soon as we get into 2021, we're in the new rules. So I just wanted to make sure that people have a plan if they need one. I know that Ask the Expert series had been conducted a poll last week, and obviously again today, about whether people feel they are ready for Brexit. And the feedback from those polls is that it's probably 50% or less feel like they're ready for Brexit. So I just wanted to touch on some things that you can do in terms of getting ready. So obviously the people that are most affected by Brexit are those that import or export to the EU. At the moment, importing and exporting within the EU is a bit like selling goods all over the UK. From next month, it won't be like that. It'll be more like it is for you if you export or import to the rest of the world. So there will be things like customs duties on items coming in and out of the UK. There'll be a lot more checks at borders. There will be certificates that you may need on certain items that you're exporting. And very, very key is that you must have what we call an EORI number that starts with the GB letters. And this is almost your document to prove that you are a registered Great British company that can send goods to or from the EU. It's important, obviously, Brexit, for non-UK residents that work in the UK, or if you're a business that employs non-UK residents, there are rules that your employees will have to follow. In general, everybody's rights are protected as they are now, and people shouldn't see a difference. But those that are an EU citizen that are living in the UK and want to continue to work do need to apply for the EU settlement scheme. That's already open, and it will be open, I think, until the end of June. So just make sure if you are an EU citizen living and working in the UK that you have made that application and that you do that before the end of June. The other thing to just bear in mind is you may not import directly from the EU, but you may buy from somebody who does import from the EU. They need to have everything in place so that their supply line is not affected once we go into the new rules. So I would have a look at the suppliers that you use, have a look to see whether they may be importing from Europe. And if so, just make sure that they have everything in place so that they will have a seamless transition come January 2021, which will mean that you're not impacted in terms of buying goods from them. The other thing to remember is when we go into January and the new rules, that VAT will be 0% on goods to the EU. Now, it's very complicated, the VAT side of things, and some of you who do trade with the EU, you'll have 0% on some goods, 20% on others, and there's the reverse charge to take into consideration as well. From post-Brexit, from the new rules, this should become a bit more straight line in terms of everything should be 0% VAT, just as it is when you sell to America or China or wherever else it might be within the UK. Hopefully, I've touched on a couple of things there for you in terms of where you may need to get some help. I would also just urge anybody that trades in the UK, in the EU, importing or exporting, go to the Gov website, so that's gov.uk, and if you do /transition on the government website, there are a series of questions that you'll be asked about you and your circumstances, and depending on what answers you give, it opens up all the steps and all the documents that you will need to prepare for Brexit. So please go and visit that. Just to say that again, it's gov.uk/transition. And finally, if you want any more information about Brexit, feel free to visit the website that my firm has, which is www.mooreandsmalley.co.uk. And on our homepage, there's a banner with our Brexit Hub, which has got lots of information that you may or may not find useful. So without further ado, I'm going to start taking some questions that you have today. Please feel free to ask whatever question you may have, and I'll do my very best to answer. So the first question has come through from Wendy, who has sent it through from Instagram, a direct message. Wendy says, I don't trade with Europe. Will Brexit affect me or not? So Wendy, if you're not importing or exporting and you don't employ anybody that is an EU citizen at the moment, then it shouldn't affect you. But as I mentioned in my intro, just check that your suppliers or your customers are not affected, because it's not going to be 100% seamless. Everyone is trying the best they can to make sure it is. But if your suppliers and customers are affected, then they may then affect your business. So it's worthwhile having a look and planning to see what impact you possibly could have. But in theory, if you don't trade with Europe at all, then you should not see a difference. Okay, so the next question has come from Francesco from Facebook Messenger. Francesco says, I still haven't received my bounce back loan. Do I have to wait for the loan amount to be debited before applying for the top up, or should I make a fresh application? So Francesco, I'm reading this question as you're saying you've applied for a bounce back loan but haven't received the monies yet. If that is the case and you applied more than a few days ago, then you need to contact your bank because bounce back loans, the money is normally in your account within 48 hours of actually doing that first application. So it may well be something wasn't clicked properly at the end, or it's been lost on the website of your bank. So first things first, go and check with your bank to make sure they received your application. And if they did, ask why it's not been progressed and why you've not got the money. Well, if you're now saying that you need a bit more and that you took less than 25% of the turnover, then it might be worth asking if you can just do a brand new application from scratch. But please do speak to your bank first, just to make sure that you've not done the claim twice and cause any problems later on down the line. Maisie from Twitter sent a direct message, and she says, will I still be able to employ EU citizens after Brexit? 2 of my employees are from Switzerland and both have applied for the EU settlement scheme. So Maisie, yes, you can still employ people from the EU post-Brexit. Their employment rights are protected under the UK law as well as what was the EU law. So those rights don't change. The one thing they need to do is do the EU settlement scheme, which you say they have done. So there is no issues at all with you employing those people post-Brexit. We've had a question from Luther from Facebook Messenger. And Luther says, hi Judith, I stopped working as a freelancer in September 20. I've taken up a day job starting this month, November. Can I claim SEIS? I had been working as a sole trader for the last 3 years. So Luther, this is one of the areas which are less easy to advise on because it kind of depends on how much money you are now taking in terms of your new job, and whether that income that you are going to gain from your new job would be the same or similar to what you would have taken through your self-employed income. So the second grant that was available ran from August, September and October. So the fact that you stopped working as a freelancer in September and have only just started work this month, the second claim would have been to cover that period, and you definitely would have been adversely affected if you weren't getting any work as a freelancer. The next grant is for November, December and January. So what you need to do is have a look at that new job that you have taken. Is that going to provide you with more or less income than you would have had last year in the same period? If it's going to be significantly less, or materially less, as accountants like to say, then yes, I think you can make a claim, because when you will still have to do a tax return for the tax year 19, 20, 21, and it will have self-employed income on there from your freelancer work till September, and then it will have the income that you have earned in your new job from this month to whenever you carry that job through to. If that combined is going to be less than what you declared as profit in the previous year's tax returns, then you have been adversely affected. The only caveat I will say is that you need to have stopped working as a freelancer because of COVID. If you've just decided that it was too hard work running your own business, and the freelancer work that you did, which wasn't affected by COVID, just dried up, and therefore you needed to start a new job, you have not been adversely affected because of COVID. You've been adversely affected because of any other reason that it could have been. So that's my caveat. It sounds to me that as long as your new job is going to give you less income than you had as a freelancer, then you can claim, as long as the reason you didn't carry on being a freelancer wasn't anything to do with anything other than COVID. So it has to be COVID related, the reason you stopped your trade. The next question has come in from Aaron, and that's Instagram direct message. I'm a service provider and don't deal with any physical goods. Will I need to apply for an EORI? No, you won't do. That is for transferring goods across the EU borders. So yeah, if it's just services, then you are fine to continue as you are now. A question from Nadia from Facebook Messenger. Nadia says, I'm a design consultant. I've lost 2 out of my 3 clients in mid-October. Does this qualify as reduced demand? Nadia, on the face of it, yes, it does. If there's 2 out of the 3 clients, assuming they contributed a fairly large or proportional amount of your income, if you've lost 2 out of the 3, then yes, this would be reduced demand, and therefore you should be allowed to claim the latest grant. However, if you had 3 clients, one of which provided 90% of your income and the other 2 made up 5% each, then it's not a massively reduced demand by losing those clients, and therefore you wouldn't be eligible to claim. You also need to demonstrate that you've looked to try and replace those lost clients as well, as the government don't want people to just sit back and say, right, well, I've lost 2 clients, I'll make it up with the grant, and therefore I don't have to do as much work. They want to see that you're going out there and trying to replace any lost work. The next question has come from Kirsten from Twitter direct message. She says, morning Judith, how will business travel to Europe be affected by Brexit? For the residents of the UK, business travel shouldn't really be affected because we have UK passports, and therefore travelling abroad will be the same as it is now for us. I believe it's slightly different for EU citizens, because I think some EU citizens, depending on how they come into the UK, can use EU nationality cards, and I know Switzerland have their own national identity card. And I think for certain ports and certain airlines, you've been able to use those documents to get into the UK. You will continue to be able to do that for a period of time, but eventually, and I can't remember exactly the date, but that will stop. I've got a feeling it's a good sort of 9-10 months away yet, but there will be effect that they'll have to travel with a passport from their country as opposed to an identity card. But if you're a UK resident and you're going to be travelling abroad, then you've got a UK passport, you shouldn't be affected at all. I've got a question from Trudy, a Facebook Messenger one. Trudy says, my suppliers have warned me about delays in supply due to the Brexit situation. I have some customers who have a penalty clause in place for late deliveries. Is there any support available to us? I'm looking for different suppliers as an alternative. Well, Trina, this is a bit about what I was saying before, and I think it's fantastic that you've already been in talks with your suppliers to be able to be warned that there could be delays in the supply chain, and you're doing the right thing to look for different suppliers as an alternative. Unfortunately, there is no government support out there in a monetary value in terms of helping you fund any penalty clauses. What I would do is approach your customers, explain to them now that some of your suppliers have already intimated that there could be some delays in the supply chain, that you are actively looking to reduce any delays down, but that you would like to take a period of time where those penalty clauses won't be enforceable. And if they deal with multiple suppliers, then your customers will more than likely have this request from plenty of other suppliers. So therefore, I think everybody has got to be a little bit more lenient at the moment with things like penalty clauses and give people the opportunity to have a little bit longer and to not enforce them immediately. But yet, I'm afraid, as far as I'm aware, there is no external support there to help you dealing with those penalty clauses. It's a case of contacting your customers and seeing if we can, in the transition period, post-January, can we have a bit of more lenient terms so that those penalty clauses aren't enforced. I've got a question from Norma, a Twitter direct message. Norma says, how does Brexit affect businesses importing from non-EU countries? All my suppliers are based in Asia. Well, in theory, Norma, there should be no impact whatsoever for you, because you will still continue to get your supplies in from Asia pre and post Brexit. I guess in a practical sense, if customs are busier having to deal with EU imports going through customs as well as the outside of the EU imports, then I suppose there could be a chance that things may be delayed slightly going through that customs process. So you may see some longer lead times potentially. But hopefully, I know that there's something like a £750 million funding being given to UK border force to improve how goods are going to get through and open up more ports so that there's not as much of a backlog coming in from the EU, which hopefully should reduce the impact on those non-EU imports as well. Liz from Facebook Live has asked the question, how do I get QuickBooks Self-Employed UK? So Liz, really straightforward. If you go to the Intuit QuickBooks online website, if you just Google QuickBooks Self-Employed, it will come up as the first ad. You click on there, and within that website page, you will see that there's the QuickBooks Self-Employed, and then there's also the other QuickBooks Online packages. You literally just click on the button to sign up. You get a 30-day free trial, and then the charge comes after that per month. What I would suggest is just double check that the QuickBooks Self-Employed is exactly the product you want. Have a look at the QuickBooks Online Simple Start as well, because the price differential is really small, but the Simple Start does do a few extra bits that the Self-Employed doesn't. And the Self-Employed version really is for self-employed. It's not for people that are running limited companies. So if you're a straightforward sort of freelancer, small consultant based in the UK, the self-employed package should be perfect for you. But do just do your little bit of homework and make sure that you wouldn't prefer to pay maybe £1 or £2 more and get the Simple Start package. Still on your mobile, so there's no functionality difference that way. It's just it might have a few extra features within the software for you. I have a message from Cody, Facebook Messenger. I have been advised to use freight forwarders to deal with customs for me. I want a second opinion from you. Do you think there is any risk involved? Freight forwarders have always been used for non-EU goods coming into the UK and going out of the UK. And they've never really been needed for that EU trade. But because of the customs work that is involved now, freight forwarders will make sure all that is done for you. Depending on whether they're direct or indirect, reduces the risk for you. Some you've got a higher risk, and others it's a sort of split risk between the two of you. You're equally liable. If you go to the government website, go to gov.uk, on there, there's a big bit about freight forwarders and what they're doing and what they will do for you and what's the benefit. So I'd have a look at that. But yes, depending on what you're exporting, obviously I don't know what you're exporting or importing, freight forwarders could well be something that you do need to use. I've got a message on Instagram, direct message from Merton. And Merton says, I had consulted an accountant, had all my details and documents ready 2 weeks back for the SEISS application. With the new changes, I'm not sure if I should go ahead with the application. Well, good news, you've got an accountant. That is absolutely perfect, because it is your accountant you should now go to and say, I've heard that there's eligibility is slightly harder, and that I've got to make sure I've definitely made less profit. And obviously at the moment, this doesn't affect the previous grants you've made. If you applied for those at a time when you knew that your profit was going to be hit hard, irrelevant if it's picked up now, if at the time you made it, you thought that you were going to be adversely affected, that was fine to make the grant. Obviously what they're saying now is you should, every time you do the grant, you should reappraise whether you are still adversely affected. So if you're at all unsure, given you have an accountant in place who will know your business far better than I do as an expert on this show, I would contact your accountant and ask them for their opinion, and then go with them, go with their advice. That's what they're there for, to help you, and that's what you're paying for. Okay, so I've got one more question that's come through. This has come through from Craig, a Twitter direct message. And Craig says, will the same general data protection regulations still apply at the end of the transition period? So it's a good question, this, Craig, because the GDPR regulations that we have are EU GDPR. They're not necessarily a UK one. However, the UK is going to follow the same rules in broadly that the EU ones do. Again, on the government.uk website, on that transition page that I mentioned before, there is actually specifically a bit in there, Craig, that asks if you're dealing with data. If you click yes on there, when it comes up with the areas you need to consider, you will see on there a document all about GDPR and what changes there potentially could be and the implications to you and your business. So in broad terms, Craig, it will be the same as what you need to do now, but do just have a quick look on that gov.uk/transition website to just find out a little bit more information. So I'm really sorry, we're coming towards the end of the show now. So my apologies if we didn't get to cover all your questions. Just wanted to have a look at the poll results. So in today's poll, it was the same as last week's. Is your business prepared for Brexit? And 29% of you said yes, and 71% of you said no. So hopefully today's show being around Brexit, hopefully by the end of this session, even though you may not feel prepared anymore, at least you will hopefully now know that if you visit the gov.uk website, get a little bit more information from there, then hopefully you can put together a plan so that come January, everything will flow seamlessly for you. And I really do hope it does. Thank you very much for all your questions today. If you do have any further questions, get in touch with the QuickBooks support team on Facebook, or you can contact me direct at Moore and Smalley using the email address digitalsolutions@mooreandsmalley.co.uk for lots of advice on planning. Alongside the latest coronavirus and Brexit information, please visit our website, which is www.mooreandsmalley.co.uk, and you will see a big banner On the front page, there's one for Brexit and there's one for the coronavirus hub. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Laura Hitchcock. She is the founder of Little Stuff, which is an award-winning lifestyle website for parents of teenagers, where she provides not only honest experience, but also consumer advice and buying guides. And finally, a reminder, if you need any more advice and you haven't done so, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook, where accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning. I will see you soon. Have a great day.